Greetings and hello to everyone out there who believes I'm driving them crazy. And those of you who believe that I might be driving you sane. Series 93, 115, items 1 through 50. There's no way out of a closed system. No, I don't mean like that. I mean that there's no explaining or rationalizing away anything that transpires within a closed system. For if there it is, then there it is. The strong believe that there is a philosophy for the strong and one for the weak. The weak believe that there is a philosophy for the weak and another one for the strong. Those of you who can see clear and hear plain recognize in the alternative a busy ballroom in which ultimate universal laws of equity prevail. It's hell to bleed when you don't have to. Everyone who doesn't know you don't have to has to. Once man was safely out of the garden and smartly on his way to Talktown, life cleverly hid consciousness behind the mind. The simple celebrate the past, always. There are two potential problems in the matter of change. One is that you can't get people to try and change unless they believe that change is possible. The second is that people will not attempt to change unless they believe that there's some reason to. Oh yeah, well, what's the third? A man asked, at any given moment, what percentage of the world's population are actually, intellectually speaking, children? Sir, look over here. At any given instant, what percentage of you is? Soon after man began to verbally communicate and describe life, he came up with the word adult. Real soon, he had to. How to check your social status in less than 10 seconds. If you eat, you're in serfdom. From a certain man, these words. Much have I struggled to expand my awareness and develop a more objective view of life so as to better comprehend its own growth and evolution. But I must frankly admit that the longer I look, the more I see not progress, but increasing turmoil and potential destruction. Thus it is that men still do not correlate, the longer I look, with their own hormonal aging. And thus it is that all sequential observations are colored and distorted by their ever-accelerating proximity to death. As the roadside philosopher stopped and gazed toward the nearby cemetery, he thought, perhaps this is why life, in its concern for the tolerance of man's mental well-being, does not permit the dead to see. Anything the mind doesn't have, it holds in high esteem. That's why it's the mind. Life told one man, hey, laugh at other people if you want to. Who better to give you permission than me, the one that made them? Leastwise, that's what the guy said life said. Civilization. Unfinished airfields for the collective. What's up for a leopard eagle when the brightest birds around him are cuckoos? One of the unrecognized joys of flying alone is that if anything gets tangled up in your wings, it'll be you. Military rumor has it that a few of those taken captive survived the ordeal by pretending that they were their own prison. What is the aerial game for a leopard eagle when the highest flying of the competitors are woodpeckers still atop trees? Consciousness that never escapes the gravity of the mind never knows what it is to soar free. Novelist. Those without the guts to call themselves philosophers. Plus it's easier to spell. Lit hip tip. If you'll put a date in the title of your book, at least somebody will read it. Scientist. Secretly failed novelist. A man with plans to start a technical book publishing company asked, "Is there no end to this?" Errata regarding one of our recent history updates. It was not the zither, as noted, but rather the merry-go-round whose inventor, after hearing it in operation for the first time, left town. We apologize for the error and trust that it proved to be no serious inconvenience to any of our fine viewers. Thank you so much. Question. Beyond the survival level, what drives a man? Answer. His mind. Question. Beyond the survival level, what drives man to try and outdo his neighbor? Answer. The mind. Question. Beyond all of that, what drives men crazy? Well, you know the answer to that. A chap sailing out on a foreign sea looked over this way and thought, what a strange land. And yet, for the sake of truth in maritime advertising, you must ask yourself, what indeed can be strange within a closed system that is to itself most familiar and most assuredly non-anomalous? And when you get finished with that one, ask yourself why you can't use this same info to practical benefit regarding the operations of your own awareness. Ideologies. Hobbies most brittle. In the city of man are two neighborhoods available, the stagnant one of hormones and the neural one. A man said, I don't believe in astrology, but neither do I in religion, philosophy, science, or politics, or anything else, since none of them work. But, so the old what? Since nothing does work, I don't not believe in them either. Another man says, okay, all right already, so I am getting old and fat and lazy, but at least I'm keeping it hid. In the universe that is man, there are two potential worlds inhabitable, the one of hormones and the one of possible change and originality. The workings of civilization fully explained in 3 words. Citizens are boobs. And a man writes to say, after hearing what you said the other night about change, how you can just slap a new name on something old and then forget about it, I tried it. I did lay a new name on it, and sure enough, I've already forgotten about it. Hey, he ad-libbed, is that progress, or do ducks crap in black and white? How to audibly determine if you are mentally breathing. Just check for the normal sound of the mind. Tick, tock, tick, tock. A man thought, I don't know which is the more annoying, the news of the ordinary's life or their lives which cause the news. If you don't take the serious seriously, they'll take you for dangerous. You can laugh at a painter, you can laugh at a quarterback, but if you laugh at the king or a priest, you'll get your head back. How come they ain't more intellectual jokes? You mean like jokes that offer some intellectual challenge? Nah, jokes about intellectual people. Oh. If, as they say, brought up to date. If, as they say, reading is to the mind as exercise is to the body, then thinking for the ordinary, as I would say, would be like shin splints to armchair runners. A gentleman inquires, is what you just said to be taken as criticism of man? How, I ask you, can you respond to such a tide-controlled inquiry? Tide-controlled ocean. Normal mental health brought up to speed. A man with a head will eventually get a headache. A fellow with a book by the window paused to reflect. Will, perchance, men's dreamed of mystical awakening or enlightenment prove out to be no more than a colossal letting go of that which he never truly held to begin with? If all words are but symbols and the mind the source of all words, what says that about the mind vis-a-vis symbolism? One man's favorite song was the old standard, "It Had to Be You." And many's the time at home alone he'd sit at his spinet and croon, "It had to be you, it had to be you," and sometimes would suddenly interrupt himself and yell out, "Okay, either tell me who the you is you're singing about, or else tell me who the you is doing the singing." And not infrequently, this would cause him to laugh so hard that he'd fart into the upholstered piano bench. There are two main types of people who talk to themselves: those who don't believe they do, and those who really don't believe it. Life continually tells man, through his collectively based civilization, that only the dumb and deranged resort to violence. A man with any natural class already knows this personally. You can alter habits, you can survive grief, you can get a nose job, even a graduate degree. But if you can't overcome hormones when need be, you can't do shit. A local philosopher thought, the uncivilized live in a different world, a different city from us, and the violently so, a completely other land. It is the invisible wounds to a real man's soul that violence actually does. One man spent most of his life trying to move away from parts of his family. A man with no individually based sense of honor may have a mind, but he will not be found to have awareness. A fabrication of man's possible mental history as represented by literature. It goes from, "I cannot live without my books," to, "I can no longer tolerate the ideas of others," to, "I cannot live without my thoughts," and potentially on to, "Books, books, what are books?" Do you get my drift, Mr. Swift? Dr. Swift. Pygmy minds are easily hurt by nothing higher than ankle attacks. Do you get my drift, Dr. Swift? And once again spoke the consciousness of Eve to the mind of Adam. Look, either tie that thing down or put it back in your pants. The difference in the relationship between books and words and guns and bullets is that whenever the latter are discharged from the former, people of all ages and political persuasions will cry out in dismay, "What was that?" and then go back to their normal business. How to reasonably predict whether you are personally predisposed to periodically suffer from moods. Are you alive? How to determine if you can and should bamboozle them. Are you attempting to be more alive? On this one world, the only sort of professional help permitted the few is wildlife psychiatry. Hormones are ultimately to a thinker as hormones are to everyone else. But so what and plus, that's not good enough. You may label activities such as this in any way you choose, but it still comes down to striving for a certain sense of control while living within universal slavery. Conversation held by me on your behalf. Ordinary people believe in ordinary things, and that right there should tell you all you need to know. Being point-blank conscious is like having the most fun a human can have with his self still on. And thought a neo-atom to himself as his consciousness continued to expand, "No, as a matter of private fact, I don't believe I will put it back in my pants." Out of the complex comes the simple, and it too is complex. One man petitioned life. Hey, torture me, kill me, do anything, but don't make me start taking what I laughingly call my mind seriously. You know, I'm not so sure it's a good idea to say things like that to life. Because after all, it could have read the Briar Patch story of Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox too. And if it did, God only knows which side it'd identify with. One man managed to change his religion by beginning to call squirrels neo-rats. And a novelist asked, "You mean it's as easy as that?" But Sutton was able to answer his own inquiry by realizing that it certainly is. And that, in fact, was what made him take up fiction in the first place. One dose of fatherly advice. Remember, son, a man with no eyebrows always looks solicitous, and use hand gestures from beginning to end. They also have an uncle who sometimes bends slightly at the waist. Civilization, the aroma of collective man, doesn't want you making fun of it. But rather than show its hand, says that God doesn't want you to. Wait a minute. God doesn't want you to make fun of civilization or of him? What in the holy hell are you talking about? One man's consciousness called him up late one night and said, "Are you alone?" And the man answered yes, and it asked, "How can you tell?" And the man couldn't go back to sleep. The name of the new powerboat was Don't You Wish? And the man who purchased the very first model thought to himself, what is the bait for being alive if being alive is also the catch? Trolling for new ideas, eh? Historic linguistic. As soon as men began to speak, they immediately recognized how much fun words are and also how frustrating. Do you really understand how important money is? Inasmuch as in many, many, many instances, this is the only way people have to even take a shot at attempting to measure their happiness and success in life. The librarian of this one planet told the young man, "Why, yes, we have plenty of books on controlling the mind, but I've never heard of such regarding consciousness. A man who can live through the normal mental life of this world before he dies can live to see the day when he realizes that he is surrounded by such information." Well, not really, but hey, we're just talking about it. First man says, "Boy, I'll bet a real thinker could take your head off." And the second man says, "Yeah, and better yet, probably his own." One fine day, life asked one man, who had been around the old mental block more than a few times, "Don't you think you've laughed about all this just about enough?" And the man couldn't immediately come up with a snappy retort. One man thought, "My mind knows more than it's telling me." And although it did not, his mind, for the overall health of the system, made no reply. Man. Man, the ears of life when it speaks, its tongue when it listens. The molecules in the maze mused. The neat thing about being locked in a labyrinth is that you can't get lost, you can't get found, and you can't get sicker than the puzzle itself. And life spoke up. "What's that? What's that? Did somebody out there say something?" The mind, a conditional description. The ears of consciousness when it speaks, its tongue when it wishes to. Those who gush the most over the power of books doubt the most their own intellectual wherewithal. A thinker who worries about his health is one of two things. He's either not a thinker, or else he's worrying about the wrong thing. Quite clearly and unambiguously did the voice aver. There is a difference between the mind of an ant and of an atomic scientist, atomic physicist. The question before us now is, did that come from the world of insects or from science? Being point-blank conscious is above all things being finally non-critical. Since the mind never knows as much as it says it does, since the mind never knows as much as men say it does, they gather up in large bunches to help conceal the fact. If you perceive that the high point of your life is going to be your death, or shortly thereafter, you certainly have a lot to look forward to. Without being tied to time, a man would not pursue the goals of the collective. A lad who was beginning to develop his own ancestors one day asked to himself, "Which is the true foe of one making such efforts as I? Fear, greed, or distraction?" Hint. Whatever society's latest response to this is, ain't it. Without a mind, men could not be serious, and without one, they could not escape therefrom. What could possibly be a greater threat to reason and good mental health than a cleaner-lunged consciousness? And the original lad at the top of the page said, "That's right, keep it up. Offer even additional distractions for me to tangle with." But note, you can look at intellectual engagement as engagement or as a dance. Since he had never lost either of his legs, one man began to feel a phantom third one. Laughter is one of the few symbolic acts that is also that which it symbolizes. Somehow, a man must grow his own best friend. Further athletic approaches to mundane mentation. Coach, tell us, what are some of the best uses of the mind? Run it till it can't run anymore. Make it jump till it can't go any higher. Make it throw sharp, pointy things away from itself as far as it can. Then slap it on the ass and tell it to go hit the showers. Thanks, Coach. No problem. For those exceptionally neurally well hung, some additional athletic support. Who was it that told the mind in the first place that was in some sort of competition? And who are the unconventional players who can high-five themselves on the ass and send themselves up to the big leagues that exist only in their awareness? A man consciously on his own side is a team unto himself. Etymology update. The original name of our universe was more. Etymology update. The original name of our universe was more. What was yours? The strong and the weak both believe that there are two philosophies, one for themselves and one for everyone else. Whereas if you see what life is doing at the spatial visual level here, you see that what indeed is going on is a kind of ballroom in which the laws of equity are put into everyday moment-to-moment physical practice. Only those on the bottom have a question about justice. But we established the other night, those of you listening, fair is fair unless you're a grizzly bear. That is, you're civilized. You think, well, fair is fair. That's supposed to be a civilized person. Fair is fair. All right. Unless you're a grizzly bear. And everybody's partially a grizzly bear, but the more you talk like this, the less you believe it, the less you remember it. Fair is fair unless you're a grizzly bear, and then the question of justice is simply this. Hey, who's on top? And the weak believe, nah, there's a different philosophy for everybody. If you're on bottom, you think, wait a minute, the matter of justice must be raised once more. Whereas, if you weren't on bottom, who would be? The courts of equity are exemplified by everything from tangos to waltzes, two-step, country line dance, the Apache. Second heading, it's hell to bleed when you don't have to. And everyone who doesn't know that you don't have to, has to. People believe, the man's mind believes, in ordinary people, that there is something, whatever his condition is. It's tempting to take an easy example. Why not? Those who believe that they're weak, those who believe that they are being taken advantage of, those who believe that they are on the bottom in any given situation. Then, as everyone does at some time or the other, they believe, I'm having to bleed, and it's untoward, it's uncalled for, it's unnatural, it's undeserved. It's hell to bleed when you don't have to. That brings us up to the comma. Well, I'll be damned, this is a semicolon. It's hell to bleed when you don't have to. Probably should make it a comma now that we're getting into analyzing it, because the ordinary would insist, being the sticklers for stickiness that they are, they would insist, no, it should be a comma. It's hell to bleed when you don't have to. Because they don't want to wait long after that. They're going, well, yeah. But then they're not going to like the rest of it. Everyone who doesn't know that you don't have to, has to. Now they wish that it had been a period. Once man was safely out of the garden and smartly on his way to Talk Town, life cleverly hid consciousness behind the mind. Huh. Even if they were to stumble back to the garden, they'd never find it. Of course, you can screw all this kind of picturization. You've been there all your life, 20, 30, 40 years. You kept thinking, well, where is it? You never thought to look there. Oh, every now and then I know things would creep up on you. You'd have little flashing dreams of some kind of mythology or some kind of parable that you read or heard. And you thought, boy, something, I don't know. I thought there for a minute. What? Okay. You never thought to look there. It's been hidden. Just as soon as man started to talk, just as soon as he thought he heard a voice saying, according to the Western tradition, get out. As soon as he heard that, he began to flirt. He realized, I'm on bottom, so he started out. But then no sooner did he get outside, then shortly after that, he began to wonder, what happened to that? And we're not going into what that is. If you don't know, then zip it up, put it back in. But as soon as he got outside the old garden and got up to Talk Town, got up to the city, very shortly, people began in many ways to say, what happened to it? Where did it go? And they all understood. You don't force each other. What do you mean by it? Where did it go? What happened to it? Everybody knows. I mean, you can't ask them what you mean by it, because then they say, I don't know. But until you ask, you know. Somebody says, I don't know. What happened? What happened to it? Your mother says that on her deathbed. Guy you went to school with, a friend, after 20 years, and you see them. They're driving their BMW, and they still look like they just got through eating rotten persimmons. And you have a few drinks. You try to reminisce. You don't have to go back to the garden. All you do is go back to the University of Tennessee 20 years ago, and you go, and you slap each other on the back, and you get maudlin and all that, and you go, what happened to it? Another guy doesn't say, what do you mean it? Everybody knows what you're talking about as long as you don't get specific and say, what? You say, what happened to it? And the guy goes, life cleverly hid consciousness behind the mind. Well, I don't know. Should we analyze it all in more, the idea of consciousness or the University of Tennessee? Being, by some reports, that they are incompatible, I guess that would offer some sort of minor challenge. Oh, all right. Since they're just words, consciousness and the mind, since everyone knows that if you're somewhere just by accident, don't worry about how, but some way by accident that you are not at all satisfied, satiated by life itself, by all ordinary life, and yet you have been able through some great miracle to not get unduly pissed about it, that you have not become a critic, and that you in fact believed that you were interested, if not actively, on some sort of great mystical quest, internally at least, without having to leave town, then there's something that everyone's looking for. And the crude call it God, and the crude call it, God knows what else they call it. Free beer for life? I don't know. Free stupor for life. Guarantee me that I will never get up in the morning and go, what happened to it? Save me from that. All right, so the point is we've been through many times, everyone knows that it is not foolishness, it is not stupidity, and it is not being religiously deranged, but everyone believes who has any sincere, trans-street level interest in life, curiosity, hunger, and yet some sanity. Everyone knows that there is something, and it comes out as the idea of hidden. As far back as you can find writings, the idea that something's been hidden. It's the first myths, the gods, the king, the spiritual forces, the laws of the universe. One of the first things they did was invent man, and then what? It's like, let's rag him. Let's hide something real great and let him know it's hidden. And of course, by some stories, it was even worse than that. Not only will we hide this thing that's real great, we'll make him aware of it, yeah. But then we will tell him exactly what it is. It just, everybody's going to grow up knowing, God, there's something really great hidden. I know it without any doubt. I don't even have to understand what it is, except, I wonder what it is. And all the old stories, as you know, going off on quest. Chivalrous quest. Religious quest. Militaristic quest. Going off on adventures to find something, defeat somebody, and then find something. It's everywhere, you can't get away from them. Jesus, it's the Roadrunner cartoons. It's all the same. We've got to get somewhere. I can't stand here. And with the crude, of course, it is literally, as always, becomes a physical interpretation, a physical understanding of it. That I have got to go somewhere. I've got to go back and recapture Jerusalem. I have got to go find the Holy Grail. I have got to go find Genghis Khan's cuspid left lower, which has some kind of magic. I have got to find eyes. And as you all know, it is best to take them as mythical, because if you try and take it physically and materialistically, it leads to, shall we say, heartbreak. And much guffawing on the parts of your fellow man. You mean you sold everything you had? And you went over there to that cave, that guy you heard about, that yogi in India? And you went over there? Yeah. And he did what? He tried to get me in bed with him. And then they look at you like, boy, Good going. In other words, you know, grief lies for a sincere person with some kind of sincere, extraordinary, sane interest. Only grief. All right, disappointment. Be nice. Lies at the conclusion of any physical, mystical quest. I assumed you knew that. If you didn't, take a week off and go find out. Probably take a few extra dollars, but go track down whoever you think's the greatest mystic, or whoever is reported currently to know some great secret. And you can obviously find them if they're alive, but then it's probably going to take, like, here, I got $5,000 I contribute to the cause, but I've got to speak to the big guy right quick and get inside. Only disappointment can lie, and that is not just an objective or personal vocation of an individual. It would be anything. If you actually went and found what somebody's for and convinced you this is the Holy Grail, or this is the last pillar upon which the blessed Muhammad laid his head, if there is some kind of thing like that in Islam. But you know what I mean? To find the Holy Grail. If you found it, if there was such a thing, and you were guaranteed, just no doubt, you finally found it, and the guy was dying, he said, here it is. I assume you know that there you'd stand with a bowl in your hand. Oh, yeah, it's the Holy Grail, but you'd keep waiting. You would end up, you'd be eating cornflakes from it next week. Well, assuming that you had been on, let's assume that you had been on just an averagely expensive, let's say, 5-year mystical quest. You'd be eating cornflakes out of it, but you'd be looking at it thinking, I'm eating cornflakes out of a bowl that cost me somewhere in the neighborhood of $40,000 to $45,000 in 5 years of my life. Anyone who has any suspicion about what might be going on in life knows that a physical adventure, a physical quest, especially if it seemed to reach a conclusion, such as finding the Holy Grail. If you don't find anything, if you can't find the yogi that you went to find, that's not too bad. That's like life. Because then you can carry on. It's like, those who travel and can't find anything live to travel another day. Pardon me, great romantic English poet, whoever it was I just ripped off. Never mind. It's not worth backing up for, is it? But if you don't find it, all right. But God forbid it was successful, but you should know what I'm saying. There is absolutely no, that would be proof itself, but you surely hear it without going off. That the journey itself, that seeking the Holy Grail, seeking the secret book, seeking the whatever, is not a physical adventure. In other words, that which is hidden, if you believe that it is something physically hidden, you got just walking around consciousness. You may have graduated from the University of Tennessee for all I know, but hey, state supported anyway. Think about the whole idea of something being hidden. Back to that. Let's assume that even collective man, when everyone believes that to some degree, we'll assume that it is a reflection, it is the shadow of something quite real. Then the question is, all right, if there is something hidden and it's not a physical seclusion of some physical object, even a word, but something physically, something extrinsic, external to you, that is not hidden, it is not a thing outside of you hidden, then we have, shall we say, narrowed down the possibilities considerably. That's when you would also lose many people, and they'd go, oh, crap. They just know it's not going anywhere enjoyable to them after that. It's beyond the world of fiction. It's beyond the world of mysticism. It's beyond the world of mythology. It's beyond the world of allegory. Because then you're left with, I don't know, an unsavory possibility. Like, I always dreamed there was something. Every time I'd hear about something hidden and all these great stories and these mythical adventures and movies and comic books, it always went, yeah. But damn, what if it's right here? See, because as long as it's somewhere else, as long as it is actually a physical trek involved, and you can't make it for whatever reason. You know, you're tired, you got bad feet, you don't have enough money right now. As long as you can't go, remember, you can't find out what's at the end of it. Like I said, you can live to dream another day. You can live another day. Even with a burgeoning, at least not inflammatory, interest in something extraordinary. So that's when I meant, you know, people lose interest. If you made them, tricked them and kind of led them up and said, look, everybody believes this. Every culture, every religion, folk tales, everything points. And you know it. I mean, in any lucid moment, just an ordinary person, you know that there's something else going on with life. And forget all the idea about God, Jehovah, or Allah, or any of that. Okay. You just simply know there is something, and not just irritating, not hostile, not aggressive, not fearful. There is something that under the right conditions, when the stars, when all the planets are real close to the, you know, where Billy McCoo and them, the fifth dimension live, and the humidity is just right. The idea, the feel that, God, there's something else going on in life. It is exhilarating. It's not disappointing. It's not irritating. And it has nothing to do with whatever religion you grew up in. If you suddenly your memory tells you of some rabbi or a priest or somebody hollering, oh boy, you're not living the way God wants you, which is a very crude representation of it. But beyond all that it is a splendid, it is a positive, exhilarating feeling. Yeah, there is. But then to sneak up on somebody and take them that far and go, but you know it's not out there because nobody's ever found it. I mean, don't you know it's not out there? It's not physical. That's when they go, ooh. See, because for that split second, again, we're back in we got new mythology. It's good for one more night. That there you are, tied down to the world's most narrow gauge railroad inside this tunnel, and you look up, and there's the world's largest train. I mean, it's as large as the universe, other than you and that tunnel, and it's coming right at you. That split second, just before, well, we won't go into it. Just before you and the locomotive make physical contact, and that split second is what would be that I'm trying to get you to picture. That I could get somebody's mind to go, yeah, I just know there's something great about life, and yeah, I can momentarily I can escape all the cultural, all the collective ideas of God, and an actual physical, something being hidden, or an actual physical trek that I must go undertake some arduous task. All right, yeah, you're right. But it's a split second just before, in this case, what I'm about to say is going to be the locomotive. Just before it makes contact with them, they go, yeah, and then they got a split second and they realize what's coming next. And they'd rather die, figuratively speaking. That is, they go, well, I got to go.
Yeah.
You understand? There's nobody after that. You know, who the hell wants to hear about that? I know it sounds like a colloquial way to put it, and it is. But hell, if I tried to give some kind of scientific explanation, it would be even more Tommy rot. Because after that, nobody, even if you carried them a bit further, if I could slow down time to where the train, that is what I just insinuated, before it hit them, and they could drag out a few more seconds, like, all right, I know what I'm faced with is this thing is in me. All right, and then hold on a few more seconds. Then what are they left with? In other words, they don't give up immediately. They don't immediately fall into the trance or go, train, take me away. What are they left with? What are you going to do after that? Where are you going to start? If they held on a few more seconds and said, all right, I can hear it. I know what you're going to say. You don't have to say it. I know it. But what if I keep knowing it? What if I know it for another 5 minutes? Or what if I know it a little bit every day from now on? What the hell is it going to do to me? Probably drive me nuts, right? And then I got to tell them the truth. In train advertising, I have to go, hey, who's to say? Well, that kind of important question deserves a specific response. Life cleverly hid consciousness behind the mind. rather than play still with the words conscious in the mind, because I keep changing, as you notice, from hormones to neurons and primary interests and needs to secondary, and God knows what will come up next. I'm trying to work out an arrangement, by the way, that's kind of beside the point, to use some of the names and terminology from Green Acres. I'm having to work with their copyright attorneys, but we'll see. Well, it was either that, or of course I could have used the obvious one. I was going to start extracting some of these pictures from Beowulf, which is out of copyright. Unlike the rest of them, when you start trying to speak that Old English, I mean, you slobber all the time, and it's just... Whatever you called it, what if the basis, which I've already admitted, has got to be rooted in reality, that there is something hidden, not lost, not really taken away from man, it's not paradise lost, you can't back up. But hidden is a fair term for the night, especially since I've already written it down and put our collective foot in it, that life hid it. If y'all think of me, that's fair. Hid. Didn't take away from you. It's not punishing you. It's got something. It didn't destroy it, according to my little story. It didn't throw it over into another universe. It didn't blind you to where you'll never find it. It said that it hid it. I guess you could say, well, life has an unfair advantage since life is older than I am and probably smarter, and so it hid it. Okay, but how about this? It hid it in you. What the hell you want? I mean, it's like you complaining that people have carped, cavilled, and God knows what all for years and years about religion, philosophy, and everything else, saying, I'm at a disadvantage. You know, my ancestors, Adam and Eve, run amok, and now I'm paying for it. And life won't let me speak up. The gods have got it on us. You know, we don't have to ask who's on top. They're always on top. And although they do not use these explanations, if they had proper hand gestures, they could use them. But they didn't. That rather than there being some kind of religious secret, us paying off some kind of theological curse, we can look at it as being a party. And we're going to play that the ultimate goal of man, the esoteric aim of us all in one, which is one and all on the East Coast, is to pin the tail on the donkey, except life has hidden the tail. I mean, it's bad enough you know the game is you got to do this, and you think, well, wait a minute, see, there it is again. Life has got us at a disadvantage. That's not the half of it, except it's twice that good, because, all right, not only can you not see. That was the best one I could come up with a moment. I could have done Spin the Bottle, but it gets too erotic, that one I had in mind. Well, for family entertainment. It has hidden the tail. You know, forget pinning it on. You can't find the tail. And then ordinary man can say, well, see, there it is. I told you. You just admitted it. It's twice as bad. No, I said it's twice as bad and twice as good. It hid the tail in you. And that's, again, people going, well, because they see what's coming. You know, who wants to be touched by this stuff? I got to go. Whatever it is, if hidden is a fair word, again, you could, even I added life cleverly, stooped low enough to use an adverb. Life cleverly hid. So you got to give life, again, credit. If we're not paying off a curse, if it is not something that is impossible to locate, if it is not a matter of life after death, if it's not a matter of post-mortal understanding, if it's a here and now, the hunger is here and now, life put you here, life made you hungry for something, then if it's here, one more time you need to, and when I say give life credit, I keep saying that for a reason. It is an operational, it is a pragmatic weapon hidden behind that, to give life credit. It has to do with, I hate to say it, and still make up a word, it's something like Real understanding. Real understanding. To give life credit, it is like point blank staring. Except staring point blank is something else. It's not a stupor. It's giving life credit that here it is, it's hidden something. That if it's not a curse and it's not post-mortal, it's not a matter of something post-mortal. It's right now, and everybody's looking for it. And those that are the few, those that... Some people find the hunger to be of unusual importance in their life. Some people it takes over their life. Some people it is, if I could speak French at all, I'd say raison d'etre. But it's something like that. But look, if it is something that life is hidden, look where it hid it. When I say give it credit, as always, there are two ways of looking at it. You can say, how fiendishly clever, in quotation marks, like, well, Jesus, life, give us a break. Like it say, well, guys, I hid something. It's Easter egg time. If you can find it, you'll love it. Now, get out there. You got the whole world. You got all these hints. Go find it. And everybody runs. And now somebody comes along and insinuates, well, what if it hid in you? That's when you go, wait a minute. Jesus, boy, talk about a shitty deal. Boy, right? Except for this. You can do that. And you go, but then you can also go, if you know how to give life credit and can use it, you can go, ooh. Oh, hey. I thought I was, Captain Smartass. But, have I met my match or what? That it said, hey, I've hidden something. Can you feel it? And certain people, hell, you could feel it when you were 5 years old. You didn't know what it was. And you still feel it. And then one day life says, all right, so you still got it. You didn't give up, eh? You still think there's somewhere real fun to go. Yeah. All right. There is. And it's not after death, and it's not far away, it's not a dream. It actually exists. You go, and it says, all right, now I don't tell everybody that. But of course by then you're hip to that. You know that because you've been asking everybody. And years ago around, if anybody that even resembles a sane person, they would go, oh yeah, I know. No people that know, people you wouldn't associate with anymore. So life says, all right, you persevered this long, there is something and it's hidden. And you think, now I'm getting somewhere. And it kind of, punch, wink, wink. Now, rather than just the first part of, and everybody runs for it, yay! When they're, wherever they go, it's in the wrong direction, right? Rather than that, then this other one is, life tells you that and goes, nod, yeah, it's here. It's hidden a little. Then if you find out it's hidden in me, rather than thinking, boy, have I been had again, would you not say, I had no idea I was that fortunate. I had no idea I was that close. I think I just dropped a contact. Oh, it's a camera lens. What's the difference? I feel like I'm zooming in. What are all of the rituals? From the crudest, which are really no great consequence, but to give you something to jump off with, from the crudest organized religions, ideas of rituals, all the way from that to that which would appear to be a bit more personalized and esoteric, such as the attempt to meditate, the attempt to withdraw one's senses from the immediacy of the world, to keep the train from always hitting you, to be able to sit without moving, to be able to sit without moving while flies walk up and down you, to be able to sit while you're cold, to be able to sit when you don't want to sit. All of that, what are they trying to do? They're trying to discover something. They call it all sorts of things. They're trying to uncover a part of themselves. It's hidden. And I went ahead and spilled the beans. Look how much damage it's done thus far. Life cleverly, once man left the garden, which again is one way, that is like the original consciousness. But as soon as man could talk, he had to leave the garden. And as soon as he could talk at all, that is think, He was on his way. I said to Talktown. What was it? The Bible. They call it the Tower of Babel. No, Talktown to me, it's snappier. I don't know. They didn't ask me. They didn't ask me to contribute. But Talktown. I started to call it Blabberville. But at any rate, there a man went. He had no choice. But as I said, no sooner than he'd get into town with somebody else, and they began to sit around. They invented coffee, they invented tables, espresso, cigarettes, outside cafes, however long it took, and they're sitting around. And one of the first things that come up, other than, boy, did you see the Hooters on that babe? They started getting philosophical. One of them says, what happened to it? And the other guy goes, he probably also had a goatee by then. I don't know. It worries me too. They know that something is gone. But you can't back up. You cannot go back to original consciousness. You can always do that. You can drink yourself into something close to it. You can definitely do it through a frontal lobotomy, even self-induced. Or you can do it simply by cutting the certain areas of the brain. All you got to do is fall into a coma. And you're back at that level. Literally. Now, of course, that's not what is lost. That's not what is hidden. That's not what man wants. Now that he can talk, he kept saying, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? According to my story, my version, life cleverly hid what he's looking for behind the mind. What? What do you mean behind the mind? What the hell does that mean? How can you get behind the mind? What do you mean you hid it behind the mind? A man without eyebrows always looks, that was the follow advice I thought we'd end, always looks solicitous, son, and always, from beginning to end, use hand gestures.